two of them are about Annie, my oldest granddaughter. And when I finished reading them, Katie, who this poem is about, said very quietly, "I hope I'm in there somewhere." And she wasn't. So,
This is the remedy.
okay. It's called what?
Wait,
Oops.
Gonna share.
No, not sharing either.
Are you selling them?
Yes, I'm selling. But
We're on a streak this morning.
That's for the library.
Oh, this is not very good.
Zany Tuesday.
If we get through this day, we'll congratulate ourselves.
Okay, it's called What Katie Did.
Katie did.
Katie is 8. Her dad calls her Katie Did. Tall and lanky, she is a poem in motion, rarely sitting still. Tossing her curly blonde hair, she can be impish or shy within minutes. Late one afternoon, she decided to perfect her kayak paddling. The problem to be addressed, a tendency to travel backwards or in circles. With coaxing from Sister Annie, Katie reluctantly slid into the red rubber kayak on the farm pond, took the paddles twice her size, and struck out with grim determination.
Grim?
Grim was the way her face looked. Okay. Her grandparents cheered from the dock. Sister Annie, swimming nearby, invited her to abandon ship and join her magic water kingdom. But Katie struggled on, got stuck in the weeds, whirled round and round until what to our wondering eyes appeared but a grinning Katie paddling forward to the dock. That night at supper, basking in her triumph, she pleased her grandmother by staying at the table during an entire meal. Until the end, that is, when she, Annie, and their mom all vied for an orange pecan cookie, of which there were only 2. Seizing a teachable moment, Mom launched a math lesson. Suppose we divide the 2 cookies into thirds. Each of us will have 1/3 cookie, later corrected to 2/3. I hate math, responded Katie disdainfully, and immediately proceeded to talk her grandmother out of a bite of her poppy seed roll. Oh, God.
The falling apart. The falling apart has started. It isn't always the money, but usually it is the money. Sometimes it's a person who leads the way, a talkative, egotistic, free marketer, ready for change, yours and mine. The rhetoric is loud. He, she can do what no one else has been able to do. He, she will make the changes that are necessary. Vote for me. You'll never regret it, friend. The potholes grow bigger, the bridge beams crack, the school building rots, your children can't read. Vote for me, friend. As quick as this free market person raised the consulting fees to his crony on K Street, the price of your food went up. As soon as the major donor said to the incumbent, my taxes are too high, your taxes went up. As soon as you said, I need a raise, your boss locked you out. Next term, friends, a person will say, they stopped me from passing major bills that would have made the difference for you. Remember, you don't have tenure. Why should that lousy teacher have it? I'll put a stop to it. Equality now. Vote now, today. If you thought that you were on the path to clean roads, sturdy bridges, healthy children, a comfortable old age, you did not think. In the free market, you, like everyone else, is for sale, or on the trash heap, where everything else where everything else is that has fallen apart.
It's ripped from the pages of the New York Times.
Yeah, it's
I thought it was Karl Marx.
I'm just so tired of it all. Anyway,
Yeah.
the other one is more.
Everything is broken.
Everything is. That's what started me. So, and people know. Blackberry winter, strawberry moon. The thoughts of older times and events often seem to offer my days a respite, a pause. Is it possible to touch those ancient days, think the thoughts of the long gone times and people? As the blackberry fruit sets, as the white petals drift about on easy breezes, as the strawberries ripen, the taste of shortcakes, jam, and fruit leathers must have made those pickers push back the leaves more carefully, seeking only the ripest morsel. As my baskets fill, these and other memories bring old summer pleasures to my Junetime labor as I fill my mouth with bright red berries.
Well, that's a little more positive.
Wow.
I went to sleep last night with Boko Haram and Elliot Rodgers on my mind, in search of a metaphor for all the craziness in the world today, and couldn't find one that would do the trick. I got hung up on why do men hate women, and especially why care what someone else believes. It must be genetic, having to do with kinship selection. Overpopulation? Whatever happened to the milk of human kindness? It's soured. Where do we go from here? Obama frees a hero who may have been a traitor. Silvers was the guest of a black church. Hipsters are infecting thousands in church. Hand-wringing poetry writing does not help. I don't give a snap if your God is better than mine. Good for you.
Milk of human kindness is a rare thing and always has been. Just like democracy is a rare thing and always has been. Right?
You're so angry. One of the worst things we can say, like you gave yourself leprosy. You put a hot coal in your clenched fist on purpose. Why would you do that? Shoot that poison straight into your veins like it was a choice, like you wanted it, as if we'd go willingly to hell for a salt bath with flayed skin. Sometimes anger is the only right response because the wrong is so outrageous, worthy of contempt. And anger really is energy to change what we might live with too long in a slow simmer of misery, spreading unhappiness into the lives of others, living blissfully unaware, unmindful of the oxygen suck that deadens but passes as normalcy, when people dare not tell their stories, the truth of their muted lives. So to be angry, to make that choice, could be to be glad all the same. Certainly a sign of life, sure of the morality you still maintain, knowing what you want to transform, if you can, in time and with love, forgiving perhaps, or starting the process that begins with intention and understanding. We are here to embrace all the parts of us, like them or not.
Anger management.
I know. That was a really hard thing to write about. And I like these other responses that just got into it, the issue. And we're angry.
Yeah, sometimes it's appropriate to be angry.
Yeah.
I first wrote us a note that said, "Oh God, the anger, the pain." And then the second person I blame is Maya Angelou, who died. She pronounces her name Angelo, not Angelou. But and I reread her poem, I Rise, and it also was about pain. It says, if you remember this line from the poem, I Rise, It's up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. And she goes on with that as a cadence. She rises like dust. I got interested in pain in a very interesting way. I began to think about actually each of you, and I thought of the many things we have in common. One of which is a fondness for each other, a fondness for poetry, a fondness for laughter. But I also, when I stopped to think about your personal histories and my own, we have all had some intimacy with pain. And I began to read about this, and there's on the third page of this portfolio is some excerpts from an essay that I read on the connection of poetry and pain. And I came across a very interesting concept that it's an ancient concept that maybe the arts, good writing and especially poetry, is intimately associated with pain, that it is purchased by pain. It's what causes the creation of the great poem or the great novel. And there's a notion of good reading and good writing is purchased by pain. And that the pain of artists is legendary, and the pain of poets is particularly acute. In fact, probably American poets more than other poets seem to love to commit suicide and become alcoholics and or have very pain-ridden lives. Anyway, with that as a note, I went to the second page. I won't read this one. I read my favorite pain poem, which is one by Emily Dickinson, which I'll leave for you another time. But anyway, I was on this thing. If you go to the first page to my poem, the title of my poem is Writhing in the Awful Grace of God. The quote above is appropriate, I guess. Poetry is a deal of joy and pain and wonder with a dash of the dictionaries. But the immediate inspiration was a line from Aeschylus, often quoted by Bobby Kennedy. Some of you might remember him. And I love the quote. I'll read it to you. He who learns must suffer. Even in our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God. Anyway, that was my theme, and I wanted to carry this a little bit further than the notion in the essay that I quoted at the beginning. That seemed to me that you could take this one step further, that maybe you don't purchase poetry or books with pain, but maybe you purchase life itself with pain. But anyway, that's the theme of my little point. Buddhists say all life is a martyr to pain. Grief, illness, accidents, heartbreak, death, the torturous maladies and agonies of age, all stab wounds into every body and soul. No one lives life without confronting pain. Should one dull the throbbing ache of agony with nerve-muting injections of morphine, or silently tolerate it like a stoic stigmatic? The doctor asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you characterize your pain? I demur, balking at giving pain a number. Anguish merits more graphic descriptors. Low grade, mild, annoying, sharp, occasional, intermittent, constant, acute, agonizing, throbbing, searing, piercing, excruciating, unbearable. I've heard loved ones crying out in pain. I've felt hurt in my own heart and body. It doesn't ennoble or make one strong. It is exhausting and unremittingly cruel. Pain may be the price of precious life. Note how few elect to die to escape it. The pornography of pain is ubiquitous, yet the sweetness of being overrules it.
Wow.
Very good.
Painful?
Last stanza is pretty powerful
Yeah.
words.
Well, is pain not only the one of the prime drivers, let's say not the total source, but one of the prime drivers of poetry? Is it also a prime driver of religion?
Yeah, yeah. The mortification is a myth. I don't think pain purchases poetry. It may purchase life, as I suggested, but the notion that you have to suffer in order to produce great works of art, I think is a mythology, basically. There are a lot of very normal people who write very great poems and write very great books.
There's maybe one or two in this room, even.
Yeah, maybe.
Well,
yeah.
can you walk into a flower garden and rhapsodize, become poetic, I suppose? Or must you know the feeling of pain before those flowers turn you on in that?
Back to Aristotle, Plato, that great suffering, great pain produces insights that great artists milk for their creative works.
Well, look, we have a friend in the room who is suffering possible pain of loss, but not the pain of disease. And there's nothing any of us can say or do to alleviate any of that suffering.
Upriver, 1992, and the reason I put the date in there is because the Delta Queen doesn't go anymore.
Emily,
Cincinnati. People cheered, waving from the bank. Passengers waved, cheering from the boat. The steam whistle echoed from all 7 hills of the Queen City of the West. Thrashing and splashing with its great red stern wheel, the Delta Queen, National Historic Landmark, moved into the current, headed upstream for Pittsburgh, 6 days and 5 nights away. 18-wheelers air-horned greetings from the river road. The steamboat whistled in reply. A riverside deck banner screamed, "We love the Delta Queen." The whole family capered and waved. Someone stepped out of a store, spotted the Delta Queen, dashed inside, and was immediately followed back out by a dozen cheering people. Cars stopped on the roadside, drivers waved and honked. Water flashed on the great stern wheel, churning upstream toward Pittsburgh. Lights gleamed on the rippling water, voices drifted out from the riverbank campfires to steamboaters rocking in chairs on the foredeck. An unhappy skunk's message, fortunately diluted by distance, floated on the summer air. Frogs called from the shallows. Nighttime on the Ohio, quiet except for the gentle hushing of the big red wheel. Marysville, Kentucky, Blennerhassett Island, West Virginia, Marietta, Ohio. Shore excursions to historical sites for passengers. Opportunities for the chef to acquire food fresh from the farms and fields. Echoes off the palisaded cliffs behind Pomeroy, Ohio, let the captain display his virtuosity on the steam calliope. Kites flown off the stern deck sailed safely over the splashing red paddle wheel, but nearly snagged on the Huntington Bridge. Still 237 miles west of Pittsburgh, at the Racine Lock, the Delta Queen sailed into and was dwarfed by a giant cement box built to accommodate river tow rigs. The great red wheel stopped. Ponderous steel gates behind the boat moved slowly, slowly, closing with a deep, echoing thoom. Turbulent water rushed into the dock. Almost imperceptibly, the boat rose. Tiny lock watchers peering from the top gradually gained human size. Voices became faintly audible over the rush of the water inflow. Then steamboaters and spectators were face to face, exchanging greetings. When the forward lock doors opened, water trembled on the great wheel as it began to revolve, then began cascading from the paddles. Increasing steam pressure pushed the paddle wheel faster and faster, rumbling and tumbling, flashing in the sun. The boat resumed its journey upstream to Pittsburgh. Farm fresh air and the lowing of cattle drifted in from both sides. The captain demonstrated the underwater radar equipment, told how he, as did Mark Twain, had to memorize the channel, the obstacles, the hidden dangers of the river. If asked, the engineer would show how he powered the mighty piston to drive the big red stern wheel. Safe, well-fed, and comfortable, few passengers gave thought to any of this. Unlike the unchanging seascape of deep water cruises, the views on river cruises constantly change. High banks shift from one bank to the other, then back again. Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, finally leaving the bucolic for the industrial urban, the Delta Queen turned into port. The great red paddle wheel stopped. The water grew quiet. Dock workers snubbed hawsers around bollards. The gangplank lowered. Reluctant passengers disembarked. Pittsburgh.
Wendell Berry's poem again, The Want of Peace, all goes back to the earth, and so I do not desire pride of excess or power, but the contentments made by men who have had little, the fisherman's silence, receiving the river's grace, the gardener's musing on rose. I lack the peace of simple things. I am never wholly in place. I find no peace or grace. We sell the world to buy fire, our way lighted by burning men, and that has bent my mind and made me think of darkness and wish for the dumb roots of life. I call my poem True Roots. Wendell Berry says that all goes back to the earth, but does it? Maybe it, that piece of us that goes beyond the body, goes back to stardust, creating new nebulas. Who really knows? Either way, whatever perceived power, pride, or stuff we accumulate eventually dissolves into the silence of nothingness. I believe our collective culture lacks the peace of simple things, and there are those among us who are actually humble enough to admit that fact. Recognizing exposes the darkness of the human condition. From this darkness, we have the opportunity to expose our true roots. This is when change is possible. Thank you, Wendell.
I had the absolute delight of spending an evening with him and Gary Snyder.
Oh, wow.
Not last week, but week before last in Louisville, Kentucky at the Festival of Faith. And it was an amazing experience. I've heard it many, many times, but this one I've never heard him in connection with Gary Snyder. And they've just published a book on their friends.
Is he still pretty vital and active, Snyder?
Wendell Snyder, yeah, both. They
Okay.
carried on quite a lively conversation with one another.
I think when Sven sent that out, I said to him, I've been spending a lot of time with my daughter, and so sometimes I spend the night, and then I go home in the morning about 7, and when I go home, I have breakfast and read and journal, and then I plant a little bit, and I get my hands in the black dirt. And when he sent that poem out, I was thinking about how that soothes me somewhat to do that. And I think that's sort of what I commented back.
Yes, you did indeed send me that. Yeah.
But anyway, that's what I did.
As a gardener, I know how important roots are.
Yes.
I have a friend who offered to send me, she has an extra copy of a book called Earthing.
Earthing?
Earthing.
It's something I wrote for Adriana after one of her trips to Mexico, and it was written in Spanish, and I decided to translate, try into English and change it. So it's not really the same thing, but it's based on it. And it says, our future. Our destiny was to find each other and become one. Like you, I have feet firmly planted on the path of time, and I envisage a hopeful future holding hands with you. Future is always uncertain, but I paint it as we would like it. Our future is an open space, a palette with more colors than a rainbow, a symphony containing all the melodies. A blank tapestry that we can fill with signs, runes, shapes, and colors. A clean tablecloth on which we can conjure endless feasts. Air, water, earth, fire, all the elements join forces to assist us, giving wing to our dreams. We have left our past behind, full of shapes and shadows, piercing memories, sublime remembrances, and subtle wounds. Infinity is spread in front of us and summons us to create it. A baton before the orchestra, a pen on the paper, a paintbrush by the canvas. Everything is possible as long as we imagine it and resolve to make it happen. I embrace you and I embrace our future.
Real devotional.
That's a love letter. That's
Real
beautiful.
devotional.
Oh, beautiful.
On the fourth line you read, but I paint it
Yeah.
as we would like it.
You left out
Did you
yet.
leave that word out? I paint it as we would like it.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I did, yes. I paint it, right, thank you.
Actually, too, understanding who you wrote this for, but it could be for a good friend.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it could be for anyone.
Yeah, that was the origin, but I
mean, it's
changed that,
beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's for anyone who can use it.
It's quite cool.
Infinity is spread in front of us.
The paintbrush by the canvas,
Mhm.
it should only have one S on canvas.
Really?
Yeah, that's fine.
Canvas, with two S's, that means to go about from door to door to
Oh.
get people's opinions.
Okay, well, thank you, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, I didn't notice that either.
Thank you.
Must be an editor.
Must be.
Okay, and here's another one that I just wrote.
What a relief.
In the beginning was the light.
Wait, they're not.
Not yet.
Pardon? Oh,
They don't all have-
all right, so I'm making it sweaty, okay. In the beginning was the light. Before it, an abysmal night that begat a big bang. Its dust is all the stars. And then time, infinite, endless time in constant evolution. The stars begat the planets and the moons and the oceans and the tears and a seed from which all other seeds evolved. And all life forms, and all music, all poetry, and all the lovers and their progeny. All we know, all there is to know, all we will never know. Man was created from a hominid, begotten by life forms that came and went. Do you really believe it was from clay? And woman was created from the moon, a moon with no ribs, but all the rhythm. From the hellish furnace of Earth's core, diamonds were born, and greed, and wars, and slavery, and engagement rings, and the sparkling lover's eyes. From the convulsion of continents and the primordial fires, oil was born, and avarice, and pollution, and soot in the sky and in the lungs, and dead trees, and vanishing coastlines, and now an endangered humanity. But the continents don't care, or the moon, or the stars, or time, or oblivion, or regrets. Life will return to dust. Dust will return to stars. With time, new life will be born.
Here, here. Here, here.
Yeah.
That's optimistic.
Well,
It's good to get into perspective like that.
Well, that's the whole story, Joe. You didn't leave anything out.
Well,
From the beginning to
oughta.
the end. That's it. That's the whole big bang. That's nice. What gives you confidence in the last line that new life will come? Why not?
Oh.
Why is it not the end of the be-all?
Many
and
different
end-all?
things, like the Lavoisier principle, that in nature nothing is created, nothing dies, everything is transformed.
Okay, yeah, the preservation of manifestation.
yeah, and
physical. That's a good answer. I just,
In fact, there was an interesting story recently that, and by the way, I hope that you have recently paid attention to your wills and last testaments and all that, because the Milky Galaxy is on a crash course against the Andromeda Nebula.
oh dear Lord.
It'll happen in about 2 billion years, but the two galaxies will crash. Not necessarily crash, they'll pass each other, but in the process, everything will get out of whack. There will be no Earth by then anyway, because the sun will have become probably a red giant or whatever, and the Earth will have long disappeared. But it'll be born again. I mean, new suns will be born, and new planets will be created, and then new moons and whatever. But this will continue the way they have, I think.
It's interesting to watch what's going on in physics and astrophysics. They are kind of cutting the branch off on which they are standing in some respects. Now
what
we're talking
sense?
about multi-universes and
Yeah.
also that there are serious doubts about some of the main theories, that data are not coming in the way they should be on some issues and so on. It's just intriguing to watch. It's like there's a growing acknowledgement of the ignorance of really
Yeah.
what happened, what's going
But
on.
even that gives me a tremendous sense of optimism, because if you think about it, it was just a few decades ago, literally. I mean, Galileo was condemned by the Catholic Church 300 years ago. And until recently, we had all these fairy tales, the supernatural forces creating the earth and doing all kinds of crazy things, like getting a rib from a man and creating a woman. And it's really silly if you think about it. And that's what we all believed until fairly recently.
Sure.
And in basically the last 100 years, we've gone from total ignorance to knowing a lot. And I think they're trying to say that in 100 years now, we've taken all the fairy tales we created over the last 2 million years and got it right the first time. To me, that would be a little too ambitious. But we've made a lot of progress, and I think we know a lot more today than we did 100 years ago.
Pardon the slander, but and then came the Republicans.
Well, yeah. Speaking of which, what I'll give you, something was published in the, there is a new great section of the New York Times called The Upshot. All kinds of really interesting data. So they look at the percentage of people who don't believe that there is a climate threat or climate change. And look at where the Republicans stand and where the Democrats stand compared to a number of different countries. It's
Yeah, I read that.
it's really fascinating. So yes.
Well, tell us what it says, yeah.
What it says is that if you look at a number of different countries, and that was research done by one of my favorite outfits on this planet called the Pew Research Center. Use them all the time. They basically ask people if they believe that the climate is changing. So in South Korea, for example, 85% of the population believes that the climate is changing. In Brazil, 76%. In Japan, 72%. On the other extreme, in Pakistan, only 15% of the people do believe that the climate is changing. 15. In Egypt, 16%. Now look at that. In the US, they decided to separate the Democrats from the Republicans.
good idea.
65% of the Democrats believe that the climate is changing.
So.
Republicans, only 25%.
Oh.
So when you look at the grouping of countries, the Republicans are up there with these
Pakistan.
highly educated countries like Pakistan and Egypt. And you say, wow.
It just keeps tumbling along, and we're all suffering from it.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Cheer us up, Kathy.
Now, this moment we have together, the now that we all share, never disappears. It is we who weave in and out of life, who come and go, leaving imprints of dreams. From across thousands of years may come a hope, a dream, a touch. Come a hope, dream, a touch from an ancestor that resides within and is somehow restirred. In the far future, a child may suddenly stop mid-run and wonder at a memory of something not experienced.
All right.
Far out there.
Or not.
I cannot say it is with glee I look upon the works of clay. I do not have the proper lore to comprehend this artist's store. I've tried. That should be the title.
Oh, that's good.
You know, Clay said a line is a poem, is a period that went for a walk.
Oh.
Paul Klee wrote a book called The Thinking Eye.
Thinking I.
Oh, yeah, The Thinking Eye. And I have the book, and I have labored with that book ever since I bought it 50, 60 years ago. So I am with you on Klee.
Is the thinking eye the self, or is it the third eye?
Say again.
Is the thinking eye the self, or is it the third eye?
Well, he is, that's the artist, the artist with the thinking eye. I don't, he's not really a metaphysical in what I read.
Curious, yeah.
I
Just
want
screwed
to
up.
say, Kathy, about that line, it is we who weave in and out of life, who come and go. That made me think of something I read at one point that said that we're actually only conscious every other second. And I had never heard that before.
Every other second.
Yeah, I know, think about that. Which means half your life, I suppose, is in fact unconscious.
So
If
we
it's
let it-
true.
We sort of pulsate in and out of. Kind of-
Yeah.
Wow.
Which, if you think about it, you know, you can be following a conversation perfectly fine, and suddenly, you know, you've lost something, you know, or you're reading a book, and all of a sudden you're not there. You know what I mean? It can come and go. You're right. It's very insightful, I think, of you.
Where did you read that? Do you know who that's from?
Oh shoot! I read all sorts of
Sounds like
stuff.
Joe Dispenza.
One of these dangerous people who read books.
What'd you say?
I said she's one of these dangerous people who read
Read
books.
books, yeah.
Kathy, I really like a memory of something not experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to mean reincarnation.
Oh, it's
I
eidetic
think we
memory, is,
inherit.
I think,
It
the
can
word
be like the
for it.
archetypal or the genetic kind of memory that seems to be becoming more accepted than when it was first made fun of.
Need more, then maybe there's more coming around.
No, we're still doing Kathy.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
I shouldn't have started doing it.
I like the line, leaving imprints of dreams. The dreams you can't remember when you wake up. It's right there, but you can't grasp it.
Can't get it.
Yes.
The Outshore people get up at 4:30 in the morning. The whole community gathers around the shaman. They share their dreams. He interprets. They have this god-awful stuff that they drink. And then that determines how their day is going to go. So they are in and out of consciousness all the It's really rather remarkable to be among the people who operates that.
And who are these people?
The Oxford, the indigenous group in the southern Amazon, part in Ecuador, part in Peru. There's about maybe 7,000 of them left.
Do you think the person speaking, second or third, will have his dream story altered in any way by listening
I don't
to
know, I
the
wasn't
first dream
privileged to sit
teller?
around and I don't speak that language. But
Yeah.
they do operate on that frequency.
We're a pretty weak species that needs to close our eyes and do what we call sleep for 8 or less hours a day, making our bodies totally vulnerable to anything, any disaster, any nibbling at toes or ears.
Don't animals do that?
That's a
Yes,
great phrase.
any nibbling at toes.
I'm a student of comparative anatomy, and I'm related to a lot of creatures.
Yeah. Yeah, ready for it.
I don't want to,
Oh, on a.
shouldn't have started. Before we did, I brought Maya Angelou, and I want to read a little Maya Angelou, if time permits. So, I'll dispose of my junk and then look. This is a poem that I said, as I walked out the door 2 weeks ago, I said, I'm going to write a poem on a broken pot. An ode to a broken pot. And I think I had my best inspiration then, because it's been just wooden stuff, and yeah, I'm not at all happy with it. I was still revising it this morning. Ode on a broken clay pot. Your solid form, round and smooth, is humble and serene as the earth itself. That earth-born, bound color of fired terracotta, your broad shoulders, sculpted clean lines, a supporter of promised growth and beauty. There's music and song in the growth and flowering of your pot-born melody of leaves and blooms. And Keats has reminded us that heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. But now a warm and favored house cat with paws and claws at home in the earth rubs lovingly against your red clay form as you rest and mellow on the shelf. He sends you crashing to the floor. A broken plant, scattered clumps of earth, and a mix of shapes and sharpness as shards explode out, shards to be saved for the potting shed to line the bottom of future pots. Your life as that of an earthen pot is reborn in shards. Your future now is under the soil, giving life-supporting drainage at the base of hoped-for growth. Can all lives that are dashed into shards as yours become the foundation of something new and bright, glowing, flowering, truly bringing the bloom of beauty? There is beauty in truth, as Keats chimed, and these shards are true to earth, but in our mechanical world, truth, though longed for, is often abused, broken, lacking the promise of beauty.
Amen.
Those of you that are not familiar with the ode for a Grecian urn, second stanza begins, heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. And what does the poem conclude with? Beauty is truth, truth beauty, and that is all ye know on earth and all ye need to know.
There was once a poll taken of living American poets about what is the greatest poem ever written, and the consensus was it was an ode to Grecian.
It's a bit heavy to plow through these days,
Yeah,
but
it's a little.
it was done in the style of the times. if you would allow me, I'd like to.
Before you do, just one question on the second stanza, the third
Oh,
line.
right, yeah.
You say, what you said, reading that was, and kids has reminded us that.
Yeah.
I assume you want the us there, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was just redoing some of this
Wait a
morning.
minute, has reminded
Us,
that,
is me.
us that?
Mhm.
Oh, us that.
I guess, I thought it might,
Okay.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of unsaid in a way if it's
Yeah.
not there. But anyway, yeah. It never really got going.
Is hoped for, no, that's not hyphenated, is it?
Base of hope for
Can't
growth.
be.
Hope for?
No.
Hope for, probably should be.
Should
Hope
be.
for growth? What kind of growth? Hope for growth.
Yeah, you begin to end almost happily, you know, like everything can be reused to make life better,
Mhm.
you know. And then we get into that business about that last line, the truth abused, broken, lacking the promise of beauty. So I'm wondering if that's what made you feel unsettled about that. I mean, it's true, but is that what you want to end on? In a way, you introduce a kind of compelling new thought at a moment when we might want to discuss it more before we end.
Yeah, well, I guess it's, in a way, it's sort of what Keats did
Yeah,
by
yeah,
plugging it in at the end.
yeah. So it's just interesting then.
I was a potter for many years, and I'll go further by saying there are people who collect things. There are people who go around the world collecting broken pots and broken glass, and they process those products into new products, which the potter would use in a new pot and in a new glaze. It's just a real circle of using the earth, which is one of the things I enjoyed about being a potter, was using the earth and making shapes out of it, like mud pies and sand dune castles. But the idea of people going out and collecting broken things is appealing, isn't it? I mean, it's like, I'm going to go there and pick up all your old pots, and then I'm going to sell them to this guy, and this guy's going to sell them to that guy, and that guy's going to run them through a mill, and they're going to come up all ground up. And it's such a trail back to the potter, back to the earth, back to the potter, back to the earth.
Yeah, it sounds like it'd be a better ending to this poem in that phase rather than trying to go to the beauty is truth, truth, beauty.
Yeah.
It makes you think. Reading my
Yeah.
love to hear some more. On? Yes, because, well, I've messed up my
Okay.
Tell people hello.
Thank you.
If you wonder why my phone rang, a child was born. I have a new member of my family.
Wow.
And that's why they were calling. That there's just been a little girl born in Lafayette, Louisiana. And she's healthy and the mom's healthy.
Oh, how
and
wonderful.
I'm happy, and I'm sorry I interrupted your
Is this
birth.
Mary,
But it was a birth.
Is this a
get a
niece?
chance to read your
Just
writing.
happened,
It
yeah,
was
just-
wonderful.
Oh, niece. Granddaughter.
Say hi to those gals.
I will.
My nephew,
Great
my
meeting
nephew's
them the
child,
other
so I
day.
guess it's a great nephew, a great niece.
Oh,
What'd they name her?
They don't have a name yet. That's
Oh, they
exactly,
don't?
that's what I texted back. What's her name? And it's little girl, healthy,
She's
mom's
4
fine.
hours old, give her a look.
Take time.
No name yet.
Do you think they'll give her a French name?
We should do what?
Do you think they'll give her a French name?
I wouldn't be surprised. That's very common.
And when will she get the first tattoo?
I don't know.
Don't even breathe it.
When that tattoo used to meant a beat, right?
Well, it still
A
does.
tattoo,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's the royal tattoo that they have in
Yeah,
Edinburgh, which is
yeah.
a big ceremony.
How did it get from one to the other, I wonder?
It's a what?
It's a musical tattoo. It's
Yeah.
a musical
A beat.
performance.
A beat, yeah.
I thought you were talking about a B-E-E-T. Wait a minute.
I'm gonna speak louder, more clearly.
Pardon?
No, I
Which
gotta
book
hear.
are you reading from? This is our.
Maya Angelou poems.
Oh.
It's
oh.
a collection of her first 4 volumes. It's
Tiny print.
quite old stuff. Small poems, not major works, but the one is that Felix mentioned was Still I Rise, and that's perhaps her best known. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I'll rise. Do you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard? 'Cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise, up from a past that's rooted in pain I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise.
Powerful, really powerful, yes.
Yeah, no wonder it's her best known.
Have you seen the little book she published called Celebrations?
No.
It's, if I come to the next one, I'll bring it, 'cause there's a poem in there about great trees. And she's basically, it's about a death of a great person. And I thought about that when she died. I thought she'd written that
Yeah.
almost for herself. It's a beautiful poem, yeah.
Sven, you made a suggestion a while ago and it just went over my head. It was a suggestion about what we should do in the group.
Well, if the group could select a poem, like, you know, the Barry poem that came up, and then various people have thoughts about it, it might be interesting to select a poem and either bring the thoughts in to talk about, or, you know, make it part of the meeting to
The next meeting.
have another meeting if anyone wants to. How do we choose a poem? I don't know.
I tell a quick story. I once had the opportunity to meet in person Maya Angelou, and Joe, it was when I was president of AIEA, and I was invited to a very highfalutin thing in D.C. It was in a State Department reception, and there were eminent people of great wealth and great achievement, and little old me was there too, almost by accident, because of I happened to hold an office in an organization that was involved in it. But anyway, I was at a reception, and everyone was kind of chit-chatting each other, and I turned around, and there was Maya Angelou right in front of me, and she looked at my name tag, and I didn't need to look at her name tag, and I said, I'm a very great admirer of your work, and so honored to meet you. And she looked at my name tag, puzzled a bit. She says, and I too am very well aware of your work too. And I thought, both of us are lying here. I lied because I didn't know much about her work, and she lied because she obviously had no idea what I did not yet achieve. But anyway, it was a memorable encounter. She's a formidable woman, and
Yes.
she would travel with like a valet. She had a young black male, impeccably dressed to the nines, who carried her briefcase, and she would snap her fingers and he would come running, and she was a force of
She's
nature.
accumulated a lot of money, yes.
Yeah.
But, and she is certainly, I mean, she may be a great person, and to my mind, she is a great American, yet she has every flaw imaginable in some ways.
A
You know,
former
there's
prostitute,
as
a
much
former-
flawed as there is great, you know, in it. But
Yeah, well, I think of her as a great human being, but not a great poet. I read her
Right.
poetry, and I like some of it very much, but I don't think she's a great poet.
one I knew that we could, is not as long as that one, that we could all relate to, is called On Aging. When you see me sitting quietly like a sack left on the shelf, don't think I need your chattering, I'm listening to myself. Hold, stop, don't pity me, hold, stop your sympathy. Understanding if you got it, otherwise I'll do without it. When my bones are stiff and aching and my feet won't climb the stair, I will only ask one favor. Don't bring me no rocking chair. When you see me walking, stumbling, don't study and get it wrong, 'cause tired don't mean lazy, and every goodbye ain't gone. I'm the same person I was back then, a little less hair, a little less chin, a lot less lungs and much less wind, but ain't I lucky I can still breathe in.
Did everyone know all of the kinds of poetry that I typed up to go on the label of this?
No, I did not.
No,
know
but I
all of
didn't,
it.
but I read it with some care, actually. That's very interesting.
Yeah, we as humans have a great history of types and
It was a great
Okay.
choice for a background. If you open it up, it's
Yeah,
better,
yeah.
you know, this whole is just endless.
well, there are repeats, of course, but it was fun.
How did you get those?
Oh, guess.
Oh,
No, on the web.
What's this? Sycamore.
Terzarima.
The bottom left at the spine?
What?
Oh, I see it.
The bottom left word at the.
I don't know.
bottom left word.
The front, on the front page, bottom
Oh,
left.
oh my goodness.
What is that?
I wonder how many different kinds there are.
What, did you go to a poetry website or something?
Oh, I went first to poetry and in the dictionary, and that started me on the trail. Right?
So that must have taken some time.
That was my job.
It was a work of love.
Yeah, yeah. But was it your idea to begin with?
Yes, it was the cover is my idea.